Hi everyone, I'm Gina K from Gina K Designs and your host of StampTV. Today on StampTV, I'm going to show you a fun card project featuring the Give Thanks stamp set from the new Painted Autumn StampTV Kit. Let me show you the tools and products you're going to need to make this card. First, you're going to need some stamps, and the stamps that I'm using are the Give Thanks stamp set from the new Painted Autumn kit, and I'm going to be using the bear, the little squirrel, the owl. I'm also going to use the pumpkins and some leaves, so a lot of stamps out of this set are going to go on today's card. Then you're also going to need some patterned paper, and I am using patterned paper from the Give Thanks Pattern Paper Pack. I'm going to be using this fresh asparagus leaf pattern that has just a little bit of ocean mist in it, and then I'm also going to be using this honey mustard leaf pattern. I'm also going to use this little strip from the cover sheet, and remember I told you in our presentation video to hold on to that because there are great ways to use that, and I'm going to show you one of them today. Then I'm also going to need some cardstock, and the cardstock colors I'm using are the ivory and the dark chocolate, and I'm using both the layering weight and the heavy base weight. I also grabbed a little bit of brown baker's twine, and I picked a few buttons out of my stash, and these kind of match our honey mustard, so I thought that that would be kind of a fun button to use for this card. For ink pads, I have some of the Memento Tuxedo Black for the animals, since I'll be coloring them with Spectrum Noir markers, although you can use our Gina K Designs Black Onyx for that as well. I'm going to use the Black Onyx today for the greeting because our black is so nice and bold and you get a nice crisp image. I also have some of these DODZ, and these are very similar to glue dots. And I have some foam squares, which are very similar to pop dots. So if you have glue dots and pop dots at home instead, you can certainly use those as well. I also have our brand new Give Thanks die set, which coordinates beautifully with the stamp set. So I'm going to be cutting out a couple images today. Then I have a variety of Spectrum Noir markers, and I'm not really sure which ones I'm going to use yet, so I thought I would just put them all aside here and tell you the numbers as I go. And then I have some mono adhesive, and I have a pair of scissors. Now, one thing that I think is really fun, a lot of times I have a box of these business size envelopes, and I always thought, it's kind of fun to make long cards. Maybe I should make one. So this card project is going to fit into a regular business size envelope. And for some of you that like to make bigger cards, this is a real fun layout for a bigger card. Now to do a bigger card, you're going to need a piece of cardstock that's the right size to fit into an envelope like this. So I've cut a piece of ivory. It's 8.5 by 11 sheet of ivory, and all I did was turn it on its side and I cut it down to from 11 inches to 9.25 inches. Now if you have a score buddy like I do, I have a score pal too, but I take my score buddy with me when I'm doing stuff at home and when I'm doing stuff, on the road, so because my studio is at work. So if I want to take a few things home, I grab this. But if I wanted to make a long card, obviously this is going to hang over the end. But it's pretty easy to still score this. So what you're going to do is just make sure that you've got your cardstock loaded into the score buddy, and then you're going to score it at 4 inches. And just go down a little bit, like that. And then turn it and do it at 4 inches again. So when you're done, you're going to have a piece of cardstock that folds in half, but it's real long like this. And you can see I think I had my piece of cardstock turned the wrong way. I think it should have been turned this way, but that's all right. So now I have, this is 8 inches across this way and 9.25 inches down this way, and I scored it at 4 inches, so now I have my long card. And you can see that this fits right into the envelope really nicely, so let's just put that in there, and you can see that's a good, nice, snug fit. I have a security envelope, but you don't need to use those, but you might have a lot of envelopes at home, and even in different colors that you can use for this. Okay, so now once that is scored, Then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take that piece of dark chocolate cardstock and I'm going to layer the ivory on top of it using some of the mono adhesive. So let's do that. And then this one, I'm going to bring it up to see it a little bit here. Make sure that's nice and even. And there we go. Okay, so now you have that piece. Now I'm going to take a piece of pattern paper, and you know if it's a 6x6 patterned paper pack, it's obviously not going to be long enough for a funny long card like this, but that's okay because I'm going to mix a couple pieces of pattern paper together. So I'm going to get this one on first. And this one. Make sure that that's nice and even. Okay, so there I have that piece. Now I cut a small piece of this honey mustard leaf pattern and I'm going to put that on, but before I do, I'm going to stamp my greeting. I want to make sure that I have an even amount of space between my greeting and this piece. So it makes it easier if you just stamp the greeting first. The greeting I'm going to use is "You are a bounty of blessings." And put that on my acrylic block right here. And whenever you have something that's a little bit thinner, if you turn it upside down and just pick it up with your block, it makes it a little easier. Of course, those of you who have the MISTI, you certainly can use that for the greeting. But I'm just going to use a block today. All right, and I'm going to stamp that right in the center here, about there. So there we go. There is the greeting. Now, I can place this so that I have an even amount of space between the bottom of that pattern paper and where it meets the chocolate. So this way it looks very, very centered. And you didn't really have to worry about centering it because we're doing the centering after. So if you had it up a little higher, that's just fine. You just center it wherever yours falls. And then I'm going to place this pattern paper right there and make sure it lines up right on the other side as well. So there we go. There's my bottom pattern paper piece. Now I told you earlier that we were going to use this cover sheet. What I've done is I've cut that strip off. I just lined that up right on my paper cutter and cut it off so that it looks like this. And then I'm going to use that as almost like a piece of ribbon that's going to go across. And I'm going to put this dark chocolate down first, and then I'm going to see where I want this to line up. So I think what I'm going to do is tape it on there first so that it's kind of even, because you do see that there's different patterns in there. So I don't want just a tiny little sliver of one pattern. I want to kind of space the patterns out on the ends so that it's more even, that there's at least enough of the pattern showing. So that looks pretty good. You can always pick it up and move it a little bit if it's not perfect. Maybe I will do that. Lay it down here and then straighten it out. Okay. Okay, so that looks good there, and that looks pretty good on that side. Then I'm going to just take my scissors and snip that off right up against the dark chocolate. And do the same thing on the other side. So now I have this pretty little border that's going to go across like that. I'm going to tape that on with a piece of tape, with a little bit of mono adhesive, and just cover up that seam. Now, if you want your border to be in the center, you can cut your two patterns different sizes, so you can do different variations on this. But I thought it would be kind of nice to have it down below because of the rest of the card and the way I'm going to make it. Now this panel is going to go on top of my card base. So let's just put that on now. And this will be all ready to go. We'll even that up. And there we go. So there's my card. Isn't that fun? A nice tall card like that. Okay, so now I'm going to stamp several images onto this piece of cardstock. I'm going to stamp the bear. We'll do him first. And we'll use a little bit of that Memento ink. Stamp the bear there, and then we'll stamp the pumpkins. You can see I like to ink my stamps upside down. I like to see that it's all covered. Okay, we're going to stamp the squirrel. Now, if you have the MISTI, you can lay these all out at one time and stamp them all, and then you can cut them out however you want. I'm going to stamp a couple of leaves. And I'm going to stamp this one twice, even though I'm only going to use 3 leaves. It just makes it easier to stamp them while they're both on the block at one time. I'll do that one more time. These images are so much fun. I'm not going to worry about that. Now, if I had it on the MISTI, I could restamp it, but I don't. But I'm not going to worry about that because these are the 3 that I'm going to use. And then the last image is going to be this cute little owl. I know all my MISTI friends are saying, "Where's your MISTI? Why aren't you using your MISTI?" And I should be. All right. So there we go. We have the images that I'm going to use for this card. Now I'm going to color a little bit for you. I'm not going to color them all, but just a little bit to show you kind of how I like to blend colors. So for this little guy, I'm going to start with the TN5. And that's going to give me a nice color for his tail, well, for his whole body to start with. So I want to color that all solid first. Let me zoom in a little bit more for you so that you can see this a little bit closer. Okay. Then I'm going to color his little feet. And then I'm going to add a little bit of darker shading to him once I get this part done. I do like using the Spectrum Noir for this because you can really get into some tight areas. And we got to get his face. Okay. Then I'm going to color in his belly and, let's see, and his little feet. I'm going to test this color out. That's a pretty good color. But let's go with the TN2. Okay, so we'll color his belly with TN2. And we'll get the little areas of his feet there and his ear. Then I'm going to add some TN7, and that's a real dark color. So I'm going to just color around the outside of his tail. Kind of leave that open in the center. Then I'm going to color under his little kerchief there. Kind of areas that might be a little bit more shady. Okay. I'll do a little bit around his face. Maybe a little bit on his ears. Then I'm going to go back to that TN5 marker again, and I'm going to kind of, in a circular motion, bring some of that brown back out so that it doesn't look quite so obviously like there's a dark brown line going around the outside. Just kind of blending those colors out a little bit. Leave a little bit of light in there. Same thing here. Just kind of working my way toward the lighter color. And then with his face too. Okay, so now I want to add a little bit of texture to that. So I'm going to grab the Spectrum Noir blender pen, and in a squiggly motion, let me do this with another color so you can see what I'm doing here. I'm going to do this motion just like this, like little U's or little W's, like that. But I'm going to do it with the Spectrum blender pen. So I'm going to just add a little bit of furry texture in there by using this pen. And what that does is that just pulls the color off in those areas. And I don't want them to look kind of spotted or polka dotted. I want it to look kind of fluffy. You can kind of see that happening there. It's getting a little bit textured. You can do that all over him, just to add some fluff. You can do that on his belly too. And on his face. You can see that makes him look a little bit furry. You can go back and add it as light as you want. It'll keep getting lighter the more you add. Okay, so then I want to add a little bit of red to his kerchief. And the red I'm using is the CR9. And that one color that I had, which was the GB7, I'm going to use that for the acorn. So the GB7, I'm going to color this part of the acorn. And then I'm going to go back to that TN7, that dark brown, for this part of the acorn. Get that nice and solid. Then I want to add a little texture on that. So I'm going to pick up that blender pen again, and I'm going to draw some lines. Like that. Then I'm going to turn it and go the other way to make the top of the acorn. And you can do all kinds of other fun things if you want to add a few little polka dots to his scarf. Some of this might not be real easy to see on camera, but see how much we can zoom in to get a little bit closer there. Okay. All right, now for the pumpkins. The pumpkin's another area that I like to do some fun, funky coloring. So I'm going to use the TN6 for this and add a little bit of dark orange. And then Same thing over here. Some dark orange. Okay. Then I'm going to add some of a lighter orange. I'm going to use OR2. I want to add some brighter orange spots. I like to do some weird things too when I'm coloring. I don't color the right way necessarily. I'm not sure if there really is a right way. I mean, there is. There are Copic experts out there and Spectrum Noir experts that really know what they're doing and do some beautiful coloring, but I kind of just like doing my own thing. Okay, then I'm going to add, let me check this color. I'm going to add some GB11. So a little bit of green coming down. Kind of toward the bottom as well. Okay, I'll do the same thing with this one. And you can use green for the stems, you can use brown for the stems. You can do whatever you'd like to see. That's kind of a fun way to color those pumpkins and add a little bit of the green in there. Same with these leaves. I'll use that same green marker on these leaves. What's really fun about coloring is just to do your own thing. CG4 I'm using next. This would be a color that would not blend very well with this green, but I just want to throw it together. I'm going to go back to the GB11 and kind of blend those greens together a little bit, even though they don't, just to soften it. And then I'm going to add some of that orangey color. That is the TN6. Just to make an autumn looking leaf, like it's in the middle of changing colors. And then I just add a few brown stems. Let me show you some pumpkins I did a little bit earlier like that. And you can see I added quite a bit of green to the top of those. And for the leaves, I cut these out and I clustered them into 3 leaves. And you can see all the different texture and color that you get in that. So those are 2 I did a little bit earlier. And I would color the pumpkin that this guy is holding, and I would color him the same way I colored him, with the same shading, and then I would just add a few little autumn leaves up here in her hat and some berries. And what I did with her is, well, I didn't yet, but I'm going to. I'm going to tie in a little bit of that red that matches those scarves by coloring these berries in with that same red. So then you have this little guy with the scarf. Here's one I cut out already. And then you have the bear with his scarf, and then she's got a little red too. And I put a little bit of green eyeshadow on her. I used the GB11 for that as well. So you can see all the texture in there. I did all the texturizing in those. Very, very much like this one. So I wanted to show you these. And I'm going to show you how our dies cut, how nicely they cut. So I am going to cut one out for you. Let me move these out of the way. Okay. So then I'm going to use my new die cutting machine. I just love this machine. It's called the Little Sister. I want to show it to you. It's by Cheery Lynn Designs. And I really like this machine because it has the same technology, this where you dial it closer if you need more pressure. You can dial it wider for bigger dies or for embossing folders. So you don't need any shims with this, and I love that. There's a little dial right here on the side, right there. And it's real easy to just turn that dial and get it exactly where you want it. So I want to show you, this machine comes with a longer plate, a very long platform. And then you're just going to take your dies. I'm going to use the pumpkin dies for this. Here, right onto the pumpkin. Get that right into position. And then you can put your platform, your clear platform on top. And then get it going through. And this is very similar to the Cuttlebug or the Sizzix. Does the same kind of thing. And if your dies shift around, which sometimes they do, especially if you're using a bigger platform, you can always kind of hold them down using some washi tape. But you can see it's a nice clean cut our dies get, and they're very light and they work so nicely. And you can see even with a very detailed die, I happen to cut this butterfly out using the new machine. I just wanted to show you how nice and detailed the dies get, or how it cuts. It can cut a very detailed design, not just a very simple design. So I like this machine a lot. This is my new favorite. I loved the crossover. It was great, but it was really big and really heavy. So this is the same exact technology in a much smaller machine. Okay, so now the fun part begins, where we can create this fun card using all of these little pieces that are already cut out. So what I've done is I have put some pop dots or some foam squares on the back of my pumpkins, and I want to lay those down here. I want to have those more centered on the card. So I only put the foam squares down at the bottom. This way it can overlap and I don't have to worry about it kind of sticking forward, because this is quite thicker here than it is here. So I just put them on the bottom. And I want my little bear to be kind of standing behind the pumpkins, kind of maybe on a pumpkin. We don't know, there might be another pumpkin back there. So I'm going to have him standing there. Let me get my other one because I folded it a little better, a little flatter. Okay, so we have our pumpkins and we have the little bear right here. And then I'm going to have this little squirrel balancing on his head like this. And he is trying to give his acorn to his girlfriend, who's the owl. Like that. So that's going to be my layout for this card. Isn't that fun? So I'm going to start with the pumpkins. I'll put those on first. And I will lay those right there. And then the bear, I don't have any foam squares down near his feet, so he can slip right under that pumpkin easily. Like that. Right in the center. And then the squirrel, he's got 3 foam squares. Got to get his foot right on top of the bear's head there. And then my owl, my pretty girl owl with her pretty green eyeshadow. I'll just have her coming in from the side there. Like that. Let me straighten that out a little bit. Okay. And then I wanted to do something fun up here in the corner, so I cut out 3 leaves and then I just taped them all together on the back. And I'm going to tape that right down. I'm not going to pop this one up. I'm going to tape that right down here in the corner. Like that. Almost like a tree is kind of hanging over and the leaves are falling or turning to autumn colors. And then I took that little button like this, and I just ran some twine through it and made a little bow. And that you can adhere onto your card using either some pop dots, glue dots, or DODZ, and DODZ, and I'm going to use a DOD. I want to call them DODZ, but I know they're DODZ. So there's one. I'm going to pop that right on top as a pretty little embellishment for my card, and then spread that twine out a little bit. So, and that card will fit into my business size envelope And it's a nice tall card. This is a great card to put money in if you're giving a gift, or if you just want something bigger and bolder for somebody that likes those bigger cards. So there is my finished card project. I hope you've enjoyed today's Stamp TV video. Stay tuned to Stamp TV for more Painted Autumn Stamp TV Kit projects, and thanks so much for watching.